Hello, everyone. I'm James Milan, and welcome to this DPCD update. That is, of course, our Department of Planning and Community Development, and we are speaking with the director of that department, Jennifer Raitt. Hello, Jenny.
Hello, nice to see you.
Nice to see you too, and happy Monday to you.
Thank you, you too.
We are going to kind of basically get updates. That's what this is, of course. We're going to get updates on a number of forums that have taken place since the last time we spoke. Folks who have been tuning into these updates know that there have been a number of public forums taking place in recent weeks related to the Minuteman Bikeway, related to Stratton Safe Routes to School, related to the CDBG, and of course, housing and open space and recreation plans are moving forward as well. So lots of that to come, but I wanted to start by just asking you, we'd like to check in on the Pop Arlington market because we haven't talked about that in a little while, and would love for you to give us both a kind of remind us what the program's about and then let us know what's going on with that.
Certainly. So the Pop Arlington market is an opportunity that the town put out for any interested vendors to basically submit a concept to us for review. We had a sort of a request for proposals, and these concepts came through. There was a lot of interest, but ultimately we only had 2 respondents who are very interested, and we're planning to work with these 2 potential vendors who will basically operate a pop-up retail shop at the Visitor Center in the Uncle Sam Plaza, which is right in the heart of Arlington Center at Mass Ave and Mystic, right next to the Bikeway. And they're going to be on that site sometime between November 26th and December 23rd. And these 2 vendors have a number of home goods, artwork, and sort of items that I think will be great for the community in terms of the holiday season. So I'm looking forward to sharing more details about those actual vendors in the coming weeks.
That's great. Yes, I mean, holiday shopping brought right to us. Can't argue with that. That's for sure. So yeah, I had mentioned at the outset that we would find out what's going on or what's come from a number of forums that have taken place since we spoke to you a couple of weeks ago. So in any order that you would choose, why don't you just kind of tell us what's going on with the Bikeway, with Stratton, et cetera?
Okay, I'm going to start with the housing plan. So the Arlington Housing Plan, as I've mentioned in the past, this is a 5-year plan. The plan that we currently have expires in this coming month, and we are looking to update that plan to have better housing strategies for the future, for the next 5 years in particular, so that we can create and preserve affordable housing in the community. And the process actually started in earnest back in February. It is being overseen by this department with the Housing Plan Implementation Committee. The plan itself has to be adopted by the Select Board and the Arlington Redevelopment Board before it is then approved by the Massachusetts Department of Housing and Community Development. And so where we're at in that process is we had a forum on November 9th where the consultants were able to provide an overview of the needs in the community for housing, sort of where we have some gaps in affordability and where there are some concerns in terms of housing trends that we're seeing. And they talked about the goals and the strategies in the plan in a draft form. And we received some feedback and a lot of questions and some interesting dialogue and back and forth among participants. And I think ultimately, we'll have a very good draft document that's going to be issued on November 29th, which will have a public comment period. And it will be presented to the Arlington Redevelopment Board on December 16th at a special meeting. So opportunities are coming up to provide additional feedback. A document in full will be ready for review. And I'm just looking forward to, of course, getting to work on the plan, but in the meantime, getting the feedback from the community to make sure that we're on the right track.
Yeah, and really getting down to it now. As you said, this will come out at the end of this month. And we have been speaking about it, I know, since February and even before. And these plans are, they impact folks for a long period of time and impact the community for a long period of time. So it must feel good to be edging closer to actually implementation instead of the planning process itself. But it's, it also must feel like there's still a fair amount to do here.
There's a lot of demand for it. And I think that there's enough people in the community who understand the need for more affordable housing, affordability and availability of housing and housing choices. And I think that the process is helping us to understand where some of the gaps in understanding how the process works, what is affordable housing, where could it be possible to develop different types of housing in the community. These are all things that people are learning about and taking in as we also develop strategies for the future.
Before you move forward and bring us up to date with the other forums, I just want to remind people that everything that we talk about here in terms of these public forums that you are putting on are covered by ACMi and then available, accessible on ACMi, either on our channels at acmi.tv or on our YouTube page if people are interested in actually seeing the proceedings themselves. But okay, so I've interrupted you long enough. Tell us
No,
about
and
the other
we
forums.
appreciate all of that recording. Thank you for doing that. I think it's a wonderful service to the town. So the other two I'm going to talk about are regarding transportation projects. One is the Minuteman Bikeway project, which is a visioning plan, rather. And the visioning plan will incorporate, the existing conditions analysis is sort of where we're at, looking at what are the existing conditions along our stretch of the bikeway. The bikeway, of course, is much longer than Arlington and beyond Arlington. We're looking at the Arlington section and studying things like lighting, infrastructure, sort of the nodes where people can enter and exit the bikeway, safety issues, access, a lot of other kinds of features of how the bikeway connects to other opportunities in the community, like open space and other recreation opportunities. And so all of these things were presented at a public forum also last week on November 10th. And during that forum, we learned a lot about the existing conditions, as well as sort of people's interest in what to do with the bikeway in the future. For those who are familiar, the bikeway is more than 20 years old. And in fact, we celebrated its 25th anniversary recently. But there's not been any real planning for it since it was originally created. So, and I think that conditions have changed. Somewhat, maybe the users have changed, while there's still more people that predominantly use the bikeway for bicycling. There's actually many people who are walkers and pedestrians and, are or taking their morning runs. So, there's a lot of other users on the bikeway, and that sometimes creates some conflict between the different modes. And so one of the things that we're going to get out of this process is a little bit more clarity about using the bikeway and also some ideas for the future that I mentioned before. So I think at this point, we're really just in the planning process. I don't have an announcement specifically about the next meeting. We did have a survey that was open, and we had more than 1,000 people took that survey. And we really appreciate that feedback in a very short window of time, actually. So I'm looking forward to reporting on that in the future.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me, actually. Initially I'm like, whoa, 1,000 people, but then I realize again, what a resource this is, just how broadly it is used, among, like you said, lots of different modes, and also just lots of different people, whether they're spending a half an hour in a month or, 100 hours in a month on that bike path. Everybody has a vested interest in it, I think. I also wanted to note that, we're going into the period of time in the year where the bike path is not going to be as busy as it is in the summer months or in the better weather. But I've also noticed over time, as a bicyclist myself, that there's a lot of use even in the winter months by those walkers and others that you were talking about. So I imagine that the planning you're doing is taking into account what's going to be available in all seasons off of the bike path.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're looking at sort of exactly that, how it's being used at all times. And there's an excellent presentation that is available on the Department of Planning and Community Development page of the town's website which shares some of the data and information that I was talking about. That was collected by Kittleson and Associates, who's our consultant working on the plan, and really provides some interesting details about users and some of the conditions that I was talking about along the bikeway. So I would encourage viewers to take a look at that if you were unable to participate.
Great. And what's going on with the Stratton, excuse me, Safe Routes to School project?
Sure. The Stratton Safe Routes to School project also had a meeting where the Massachusetts Department of Transportation staff, through the Safe Routes to School program, presented a little bit of where they're at with the design process, which is about 25% complete at this point, and also explain some of the sort of impediments that need to be removed to make it more ADA compliant, to potentially install new sidewalks to make for safer routes for children and their caretakers and families walking to school, ideas about bike routes and paths, as well as pedestrian crossings, potentially narrowing the width of roadways. A lot of different things were discussed. And so at this point in time, what I wanted to share is that everybody is invited to view the project information page, which was developed by MassDOT, and take a look at the page and get some ideas potentially, and share your ideas with us through a survey that is available on that page by Friday, November 19th. So that is basically the next step in that process. If people are interested, we are glad to answer any questions.
I know that everything that you do involves a whole lot of planning and then the implementation of those plans. And I think people are mostly, when we talk here, we're talking about, okay, there's more meetings, there's more ideas have come up, there's more deliberation going on, et cetera. And I think it's worth, again, pointing out that, hey, that's what we're asking you to do. We're asking you to be very thoughtful, deliberative, and inviting of public input around these things, which then are going to be affecting and impacting our experience on a daily basis, moving through our town and operating in our town. So I'm conscious of the fact that we talk a lot about talk here, but that's all necessary in order for things to actually happen in a thoughtful way. So
it is quite an iterative process. And we have many meetings and many opportunities for people to get involved, but also we understand that people might not be able to attend those meetings. So that is why we sometimes post a survey, or we have other informational items on our webpage for people to learn more. And of course, participate would be the best thing that could happen.
And I know last time, I'm sorry, Jenny, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to move on to the CDBG open house.
Yeah, I was going to ask the same thing, so.
Right. Well, then we're on the same page about the Community Development Block Grant session that was hosted, which was really just an open house for people to learn more from our CDBG administrator, Mallory Sullivan, about the program and a little bit about sort of the history of the program in Arlington, the different parts of things that can be funded in the community, like affordable housing, economic development, parks and recreation, public facilities and infrastructure. And she walked through every component and element of the program, talked about why things are eligible for Community Development Block Grant funds, talked about our typical allocation, which is usually somewhere in the vicinity of about $1 million annually that we receive as a federal entitlement community, and also introduced the community, the people who were participating, to the upcoming application process and how that relates to some regional needs and demands, because we participate in a regional consortium of communities who operate these federal programs. And so the application is now actually open and available, and we are accepting applications from the community through January 14th.
And one just quick follow-up out of, again, curiosity. My sense from talking to you about this a couple of weeks ago is that CDBG grants are usually part of the funding for a project. Is that accurate, or are they sometimes, a project is more or less entirely funded by a CDBG grant?
No, it's definitely Community Development Block Grant funds are typically a leverage, or one part of many pieces of funding sources. towards some project, whether it's town funds, as in municipal funds of some sort, or grant funds if it's a nonprofit organization, or other town money, because these are federal funds. It could be town Community Preservation Act funds, or other sources as well. So yes, it's typically part of a whole package of funding sources.
Thanks for that clarification.
You're welcome.
Anything we have missed that we should mention?
But just a couple of quick things. One is that I'll say that we were able to hire David Morgan, who is our new environmental planner and conservation agent. Very excited to have him on board.
Mhm.
And one of the many things that he will be working on as a project manager is the open space recreation plan work that we do for the community with the Open Space Committee. He'll also, of course, be working with the Conservation Commission. But the open space and recreation plan is being updated at this point in time. And so David is working on the creation of the next public forum, which we are saving for December 8th. So we'll learn more about that soon and the details of that at a future update as well.
Great. Yes, we get to speak to you again before that. So, all right. Well, if that does it on your end, thank you so much, as always, for your
You're
time.
welcome.
I have been
Thank you.
speaking with, she is Jennifer Raitt, our director of our Department of Planning and Community Development. I am James Milan. Thanks again for your time, Jenny. Thank
Thank
you for
you.
your time out there, and we'll see you next time.